spirit of Easter, we're in the spirit of Queen's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, and this is my favorite day. I keep saying this. 22162 is our SMS line. Start with the word YM254. Don't forget to leave your name and where you're watching us from. I go by the name of Barry Moses, or It's Barry Moore on every social media platform. And I'd like to send a major shout out to Hilda Wathithi for the bulletin. It was lit. This segment is called Women Empowerment, and my guest of the day is all the way from Aga Khan University. She's the Associate Dean of Students, and I'll let her introduce herself before we can carry on with this conversation.
Hello.
Your
Thanks,
camera
Barry.
is number 4.
Thank you. Thanks, Barry. It's really great to be here to talk about this really important issue. Speaking as a woman that has needed empowerment all her life, but I am the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at the the Graduate School of Media and Communications at Aga Khan University. I'm actually here from Australia, so I come to you as a woman that grew up in country Australia and then went on to study at the University of Melbourne. I actually studied law. So
your first degree?
My first degree was law, and I was one of quite a number of students, female students, but it was quite a huge sort of reality check when I got into the workforce because I was the first female that the law firm had ever employed. And so they actually found it difficult to treat me as a lawyer. They saw me
You
as...
faced a lot of discrimination, yeah?
Well, you can call it discrimination or you could call it
And
challenges.
what around town is that lawyers are very arrogant, I'm sorry to say. And
well, let's just say that there wasn't a lot of humility in the firm that I worked with.
You choose to go the path of saying what was not there rather than what was there. Anyway, thank you very much. Welcome to Y in the Morning. And it's a pleasure to host you. I'd really like to know what really led you into going the media way?
Okay, as I said, I studied law first and I worked as a lawyer for a few years. And I think my attraction to law was this notion of justice. You know, I really thought that you could do something as a lawyer. What I realized is that law isn't always about justice. It's about process, filling in forms. So it wasn't the most fulfilling career for me. I wasn't really suited to be a lawyer. So I took 6 months off after feeling like I'd been through 500 divorces without one successful relationship. And I then decided I'd go into journalism. I wanted to pursue a creative path. And that was really interesting. I spent 13 years as a journalist, and it was, I'd say, a really interesting career. But again, I felt a little bit unfulfilled. I needed some challenges. So I spoke to my employers with my background in law, and I said, look, you're always having legal problems. I've got a legal background. There's this great program at the University of Melbourne from where I was an alumnus. And I said, I'd really like to go on and study media law. And so they actually supported me to study a graduate certificate or graduate diploma in media and IT law. So I went back and I fell in love with learning. You know, it's funny, I wasn't a great student as an undergrad. So out there, girls, if you're not doing well at uni, there's hope for you. You can even become a dean.
It always happens, because at this particular point, you're young, and there's a lot to do, there's a lot of energy. But then again, after you realize some of the things in life, your focus gets in more on what your passion is.
Yeah, and I think also it was about the learning. Like when I went through university, the whole idea about teaching in a university were big professors coming in, opening their book, reading from their chapter, not even engaging with the audience, and just walking away, closing their book at the end of the lecture and walking away. And so that was a really challenging thing for me, because I thought, oh, what's this, you know? So now education is so different. Like you really do think about the student, you're really focused on the student experience, and it's really about looking at a partnership with your students and you going on to discover new things. We're in such exciting times. I mean, in many ways, when I was going through and deciding on a career path, you only had a few options. Now the career options are just massive.
So many
opportunities
have come up in so many different ways. And the question is, you faced a lot of challenges as a woman in the law field. And in the media industry, have you faced some challenges?
Well, look, I think you always face challenges. For me, the hardest thing was actually after a while the routine of the news cycle became very predictable. And so I didn't feel like I was extending myself, and that's why I looked to the option to study. And then I was able to do some really interesting work where I had a unique position as a legal advisor and a chief sub-editor. So I was actually employing all of my skill set. So I think, you know, for me, in terms of, there's no one career path. There are many ways to getting to where you want to go. And if you experience disappointment, that just requires resilience and focus and open-mindedness to find the opportunities in adversity. And I certainly, when I was a kid, I did not envisage being a professor or being an academic. I envisaged probably myself as being a teacher and you know, a wife and a mother. But as I've gone on, I've had my mind open to opportunities. And in many ways, it hasn't been inspired by any one individual. It's around having a montage of influences.
A montage of influence. I like that.
And being able to sort of just pick up options. So I've travelled a lot. I went to university at 17. As I mentioned, I grew up in country Queensland in Australia. I was one of 5. I was the first in my family to complete university. I'm the first in my family to go on and do a PhD. And I think I'm the first in my family to ever work in
but you
Kenya.
don't say. Strength of a woman right here. 22162 is our SMS line. Start with the word YM254. Don't forget to leave your name and where you're watching us from. I'd like to ask her, how did you react to the news of coming to work to Kenya the first time you got this opportunity?
Okay, so I was recruited, a global recruitment firm reached out to me, and they sent an email asking if I would be interested in a position in Kenya. I immediately deleted the email. And I went back.
What idea did you have?
Well, you know, at that stage, I was, I think I was acting head of school at the University of Queensland in Australia. My son was in his second last year of school, and we just thought, there's no way. Why would I go to Kenya? And anyway, after a while, I went home to my husband and I said, you know, I got this unusual email asking me if I'd be interested in a job in Kenya. So what do you think? And he goes, oh, that'd be amazing. So he said, you should go for that. And so with the support of a fantastic husband and an amazing son, they sort of gave me the courage to apply. And I have
Thanks
to say,
to our family
it's great.
issues here.
Yeah.
All right, media has really evolved, if I can say. And everybody has a media house now. Your phone is the equipment. Your social media is the platform for sharing your content. And so many people are making it without necessarily going to media school. And so many people are famous online and they have influence. Media houses are even employing people who didn't go to media school because of their influence on social media and on the internet. What's your take on this? Do you think there's still it's still necessary to go to school for this?
I think it's probably more necessary than ever for people to go to school. And I think it's more important than ever that consumers have a capacity to really engage with content and understand it. Because increasingly with the democratization of media and the deprofessionalization of media, what we're having is a lot of information out there, but it's very hard to discern quality. And a lot of journalists are saying that their role is going from being the finders of news and information to the people that are able to present it in an accessible and meaningful way. And I think that there are responsibilities both with the producers of media content and with the consumers of content. So I would be advocating very much that media and media literacy and digital literacy are topics that are taught in primary school up. And that it's incumbent on all of us as citizens to be able to discern what is good quality information and what is not. And we see the phenomena of fake news, we see the phenomena of disinformation and
propaganda
and spin and all of those things. And but you know, there's so much information out there. Where do we go for quality? And that's where the media, the legacy media, the media houses have to really focus on being able to help people discern the quality of information out there. And also, you know, in many ways, our gatekeeping role is so much more important.
So as a broadcaster and as a consumer, you all need the knowledge.
You do,
Absolutely. As a consumer, it's very easy to get lied to or swayed.
Yeah, and if you don't take a cynical eye, a critical eye to the information that's out there, we fall victim to the people that are using information for power. So it's just a redistribution of the old power that the traditional media have. It's been redistributed, but the problems are still there. They're just hidden. And so it's important that we understand that.
All right. For the viewers out there, a very huge chunk of our viewers are young people who are aspiring to be people in this society. What is the future of media according to you? Now that the ratings on TV are not that high, people are streaming live on Facebook more, people are streaming on YouTube. What is the future of media?
Well, I think that the future of media is really strong because we're all using media to communicate with each other. I think the structures of media will change radically over the coming years. And I do think that the economic base that funds media will change, and we have to look at interesting and creative ways to sustain media. I think the importance of media, you know, legacy media, the importance of journalism is going to become so much greater in the future, simply because as we get out into the world of information, there's just so much there that we do need help to discern what is quality and what is not, what is real and what is not. So I think that there's a bright future for journalism. I think there's a really bright future for education, and I think that technology is a tool that helps us to communicate, helps us to share, but technology doesn't necessarily discern quality. That's where you need the intellectual input, and that's where we've got the human part of media and communication will never leave us.
And that is where school comes in as well.
It is, yeah.
All right.
So
technology doesn't what again? That was a very good
technology
quote.
Doesn't determine quality.
All right, technology doesn't determine quality. Wise words from a decent woman right here. 22162 is our SMS line. Start with the word YM254. Don't forget to leave your name and where you're watching us from. Your views, your comments, your questions are invited straight to me or to her. All right, back to the Queens now. Today's Wednesday, and on Wednesdays we always focus on matters Queens. So I'd like to know, currently, as the Dean in the media school, how many students do you have so far?
Okay, so I'll correct you, I'm Associate Dean.
Associate
I
Dean,
think my Dean would get very upset if he thought that I was trying to portray myself as the Dean. But no, he's a wonderful man.
Thank you for coming correct for yourself and for the Dean.
We're a new program, so we just launched our Master of Arts in Digital Journalism this year in January. So we have 25 students that are in our current intake. We do have professional development programs, and we've had probably, since we started at the end of 2014, probably about 1,500 students go through under our professional development programs, in anything from a one-day program through to a 3-month program, looking at building foundational skills in journalism. So we have 25 part-time students. Our program is 2 years part-time, targeting mid-career journalists.
Mid-career journalists.
And the view with that was that we're facing this digital disruption, that we have a situation where technology has really, in many ways, turned media on its head. And we're struggling to find out what our role is and where our future lies. So in this program, we're really focused on practice. We're really focused on people developing the multimedia production skills that they need to be producing content for the digital era. So we have a platform neutral philosophy that every story must be filed in multiple formats. We are also looking at instilling specialist reporting skills. So the students will go through, do a specialist project in an area that they've identified as having a need, where there's a gap in the coverage here in Kenya. We are also fostering entrepreneurship and innovation. So we're looking at, like, just recently we had a session on virtual reality TV, and it was
which
amazing.
I think is the future.
Yeah, you know, it's clearly a really important technology that is changing the way in which we broadcast, and also changing the audience experience. And it was quite surreal sitting there with I'm not a gamer, as you can probably tell from my demeanor, so sitting there with this huge sort of headset on, looking at a story where your face is going around, so you're not looking at a camera, you're not looking at a screen, you're looking everywhere, you're experiencing, and you felt like you were going down a waterfall, you felt like you were soaring through the air, and you actually felt that you were sitting at the table having a meal with some journalists talking about the story. So it was a really great experience. I think it has a lot of potential, but it's just one tool. You know, there are a whole heap of tech trends, like there's bots, robots, there's drones, there's all sorts of technologies that can help us with our journalism, and can also help the audience develop empathy with the issues and the problems that we're reporting. So I see it as a two-pronged approach. We've got to really think about our audiences in the future. But it's just one tool. It's a tool. It's the basics of journalism are good storytelling, good visual effects, understanding what your audiences need to know.
Good storytelling, good visual effects, and understanding your audience.
Yeah.
All right, so it's very important to always revisit the curriculum in media, because it's really changing with technology. All right, amazing. So one last thing.
Sure.
All right, how many girls are in how many, all right, what percentage are girls in this?
Okay, so when we first had our applications, it was around about 50-50. In fact, we were very impressed with the girls. But our application process is very rigorous. We require everybody to sit an admission test, which is a knowledge test about journalism, and a live writing test. We also require a portfolio of work. We require referees from industry and from the academy. We require a portfolio of work. So by the time we got to our admission process, we had about just under 50% female and slightly over 50% as male. As we go on, we're hoping to ensure that we have 50-50. It's a little bit unusual because quite often in media schools you see more women than men.
All right, this is a fact.
Yeah, that's a fact. That it's attractive to women. Often women don't stay in the industry as long, and I can understand there are many reasons for that, as we all know, families. But also I think in East Africa there are other challenges that females face.
Different from Australia.
Very different to some of the issues. But also, you know, I think for women we have a number of common issues, and that is that we try to be super women. And you can't be a super person, you're human. And I think that's the thing, that the message that I would give to women out there that are wanting to succeed is don't be too hard on yourself. You know, like I know I did my son was 3 and I was working full time and I was studying my PhD. I finished my PhD in 3 years, and my son was 6 when I finished, and I was still working as full time as an academic. It nearly killed me. You know, like I was exhausted. And I just sort of felt I was a constant failure because I wasn't keeping anybody happy. But at the end, if you give yourself an opportunity to think back and celebrate your successes, I think you're going to have a far healthier career and a happier life.
All right. I said the other one was my last one. I'm sorry.
I preempted your question, have I?
I'd like to revisit something that you shared with me earlier. With your background in law and media as well, there's something called media freedom, you know?
Yeah.
Do you think it's a reality? And sometimes I hear people say, no, they don't need all the freedom. They need just enough freedom. What do you think about this?
Media freedom is an absolute essential. But the thing is that media freedom does not mean irresponsible exercise of freedom. And I think that that's a really important message that we have to remember as media people. With all of the privileges that we get as media, we have huge responsibilities, and it's remembering to come back to that thing that we are here for the public. We are here as a service to the public, and nowhere currently is it more important in these times of massive massification of information, is it more important for the media to exercise their freedom responsibly and assertively.
All right. It's not, thank you very much for that information. People have different views about that.
Sure.
And yes, that is the point of being human, because we can share and disagree to agree. But anyway, not saying that the boys don't need encouragement, but this is the Queen's Day, so a word of encouragement to the women out there who would like to join the media industry.
Well, I think the thing is, we have to go into working as a journalist with a notion of public service in mind, that we're here for the public benefit. If you're going into media to be a celebrity, then I think it's important to remember that it's hard work. You've got to really...
It's allowed.
Sorry?
It's allowed to get into media to be a celebrity.
If you want to, but it's hard work. It's hard work. And the thing is that being a celebrity is not enough. You know, if you want to do that, you have to go in with your eyes wide open, that people ultimately respect is earned from the job that you do. If you do a good job, you earn respect. If you don't do a good job, then you just become somebody that was there, and you have no impression on history.
The best is to focus on doing a good job. The rest will come.
Yeah, the rest will come. You know, if you do your job well, you don't go in it for accolades, you go in it because of a conviction that this is really what you want to do, then success will find you. You will not have to find success.
I think I should join your class.
I hope you do.
Thank you very much for coming through. Thank you very much for your word. And thank you very much for the work that you were doing for the media in these trying times for the media.
Thank you very much.
With technology coming in. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, this has been another segment of Women Empowerment on this particular Queen's Wednesday on Y in the Morning. 22162 is still our SMS line. Start with the word YM254. Don't forget to leave your name. And where you're watching us from, I go by the name of Barry Moses, or it's Barry Moore on every social media platform. Kalami Val will be back with some more of Y in the Morning, so don't go nowhere.
Y254